alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to A Live After Reading. I'm Tim Niederreiter, and with me today on this special midweek episode is Bryan Tann. Welcome back, Bryan.
Hey, Tim, thanks for having me. Glad to be back.
Yeah, briefly introduce your book, because you do have your book out now.
Yeah, I've got 2 books out right now.
Oh, 2 books. My bad.
Yeah, I've got 2 books out right now under Random Evolved Media. You go to randomevolvedmedia.com, go to the store, and you can purchase The Enforcer, which is actually the first novel I ever wrote. I wrote that novel back in mid-2000s. And so it's gotten some new life as well. And that give me 2 seconds. I'll grab my phone and read the synopsis.
Sure.
See, just a little bit behind the scenes, Bryan don't never have anything memorized. Bryan had too many head injuries, so I write everything down.
Yeah, hey, fair enough.
I'm not going to remember anything. I'm lucky to remember my wife's name, let alone my own name.
The way my memory works, I just have to write stuff down, and then I usually remember it. But then often I'll get it a little bit off, and that's no good. So.
Yeah, I'm the same way. But when it comes to movies or TV shows or anything that's like plot driven, I can remember everything.
Oh yeah, no, that's the easy stuff.
It's crazy.
What happens in the story? Yeah,
exactly. Like I've always said, if I've seen a movie once, I've seen it for forever, and I remember exactly it. I still remember. I can't remember the guy's name, but the male lead from Grease 2 did a vampire movie that came out in the mid to late 80s, early 90s. And David Carradine played Count Dracula, but he was living under an assumed name. And it was like a Western because like the vampires were shooting themselves with wooden bullets. And it's like,
what the hell? That sounds positively nuts. I'm not surprised you remember that, but I'm also kind of surprised that they made it.
I know. Like, I seriously got to discover the name of this movie and see if I can find it and do it on the Plotaholics one day. But so, The Enforcer, the synopsis for The Enforcer, it's my urban fantasy novel, which is the fancy way in the genre of saying vampires, werewolves. Oh my! A mysterious group has begun to threaten not only the domain, but the life of Mistress Enya Blake, the supreme ruler of the city of Pittsburgh. When her defenders are overwhelmed and her options dwindle to non-existent, Mistress Blake has no choice but to take desperate measures. She's being attacked from the shadows. To protect herself and her city, she must enlist the monster that the shadows fear. The city of Pittsburgh will never be the same.
Oh, badass. Sounds good.
Yeah. I basically get to run roughshod through my hometown in an urban fantasy setting, so dig it. That just came out in just 2 months ago, actually.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I'll have an upcoming re-release of the sequel to my novel Invincible Heart. That's coming out, and the title of that book is Unbreakable Mind. That'll be coming out second quarter of this year, so keep your eyes open for that. I've already started doing some pre-promo. No pre-orders as of yet, but I have started doing the promos. So.
Oh yeah, pre-orders can be pretty brutal, at least for me. I mean, I got the pre-orders up for Well Country. That's my 3rd epic fantasy book, and I'm like, I can do this, but it's close. It's getting close.
Right.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Anyway, I did once want to pick your brain about something in particular today, though, Bryan.
Please do. Man. I love giving out brain candy.
Because I know we've actually butted heads a little bit, friendly, but we butted heads a little bit about movies on other shows in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought, it's been a long time since I saw a movie that I really, really liked, I guess. That I thought was this is a fun story. This is also a quality, it gives me this kind of feel that I want out of a movie. And it's weird. I think the problem was that, maybe was that I've been watching too many Marvel movies, honestly. Those start feeling kind of samey. And they also have this same kind of glitziness to them that something like the movie I'm thinking about, Alien 3, does not have at all.
Right.
It's really down to earth. And I like that in a movie.
Well, Shane Wilson and I talked about this not only on our recent episode of the Plotaholics podcast, but we've talked about it in general. We've talked about sort of Marvel fatigue. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? These Marvel movies, I wouldn't even so much and say I don't want to go so far and say they feel the same, but I get that they do because they're very formulaic.
Yeah.
So, especially the origin stories. Superhero, regular guy or gal. Superhero gets powers. Superhero goes up against someone that has similar powers to them. Story over. Continue on to bigger story. So, but we were talking about it, and yeah, these movies are relatively formulaic, but one of the things that they started doing within the last couple of years is they're giving them their different feels.
Mm-hmm.
Black Panther does not feel the same as, say, Captain Marvel or
Captain America Civil War, for example. Yeah, Captain America Civil War, especially not Civil War. Winter Soldier that's my favorite one, probably. Still.
Winter Soldier is probably among the highest quality as far as story, as far as universe, as far like Winter Soldier is definitely it should be the jumping off point for not just any Marvel film, but especially the second film in a series.
Yes,
right?
yes, that's a 1-2 punch there, because that's actually a surprising second punch, because the first one is not nearly that strong. It's one of the weaker ones.
It's really I
think personally anyway.
Right. Well, I think the weaker MCU movies, if we're going to go that route, you definitely have to look at Thor: The Dark World.
Yes,
a great story, a great premise, but for some reason the execution just did not work. And then you look at, say, Iron Man 3. Mm-hmm. Again, a great premise, but they let us down in the storytelling. There's so many other things they could have done and they didn't do. You even look at, if we're going to talk, weaknesses and so forth. I'll even say that those are the two of the weakest of the Marvel films, but those films are still, they have high production quality.
Yeah.
The stories aren't bad. They're just not. They just didn't.
They're just kind of missing something. I mean, they're missing a little bit of spirit, and I think that's how they and maybe it's because they feel like they're derivative to some degree from their predecessor in the same series.
Yeah, well, they're different. Well, the thing
with that same hero, yeah,
right. Like if I watch all the Thor movies back to back, right,
mm-hmm.
I'm gonna love Ragnarok.
Yeah.
I'm gonna love Ragnarok because that's where I think Ragnarok is what Dark World wanted to do,
mm-hmm.
but they just missed it, and then they got it right. But still, I think Thor: The Dark World is better than the original Thor. The original Thor, it suffers because this was the formula in MCU Phase 1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
maybe that's the issue. It just feels kind of dated, actually, weirdly. Right. It's that fast moving.
Right. And I think that the MCU has if there are benefits to COVID-19, the MCU was founded because we got a break. And
mm-hmm.
now with WandaVision and now going into Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we're getting something that not only feels different, but because we've had time to breathe from Marvel, now we can appreciate this world and these characters again. Because I mean, what Marvel's done is unprecedented. Even Star Wars hasn't been able to put out
Star Wars
22 movies in a decade,
and Star Wars has barely managed to put out 9 ever. Or 12 and 9 in its main series ever. Anyway, it's very rough. And
these last 3 that are a part of the main storyline. Honestly, I know we're probably on difference of opinions, but I'm a Last Jedi guy. I think Last Jedi is the far superior of the sequel.
No, I don't like any of them, so it's hard for me to say. I didn't like the sequel trilogy much. I mean, I liked some of the things they were trying to do. I didn't like how they did almost anything. Though I will say there were some amazing visuals, especially in Last Jedi.
The visuals were amazing, but the problem is that they left so many storytelling opportunities out. Finn could have been the quintessential character of a new generation.
There weren't enough characters. The characters, like they wasted most of the characters. But yeah, especially Finn, and honestly,
the main 3.
Just everybody practically. Yeah.
Wasted. Yeah. I mean, Star Wars really fell into the whole, well, we want to give fan service.
Yes.
Yeah, but you're losing out. The fan service that you did for Rogue One, perfect.
No, that was great. And they had a good story and a good movie to go with it. Yeah.
Right. Even Solo could have been so much better. It had so much potential. You want to talk about wasted performances? If John Boyega is probably among the most wasted talents of the last 10 years of Star Wars. And you know what? We got to throw Donald Glover in there as
Oh gosh, yeah.
How do you have Donald Glover, one of the most talented actors on the planet today, who doesn't get anywhere near enough the respect that he deserves, and you waste him as Lando Calrissian?
How do you waste the role of Lando too? Like, how do you make Lando's role a wasted role? Come on,
right?
Disney handled Marvel a lot better than they handled Star Wars. I'll put it that way. I mean, it seems like their management there, or with the team they had on it, was a lot better on the Marvel side, partially because Marvel was the same team, basically. Right. Same team, same people were putting those people in charge. They were just now working for Disney. Whereas, like, you look at Star Wars, where they're basically trying to rebuild it from scratch, and that's actually the real challenge with these franchises. Like, Star Wars is actually more in common with the Alien franchise, which is what I was thinking of, where there's these big gaps between some of the movies in time, in production. I love Alien so much. I Aliens.
Really wish they could treat it a little. I wish they could treat that series better.
Yeah.
Prometheus, I thought, was a nice little.
It isn't the worst thing ever. It's okay.
It's a hell of a lot better than Alien versus Predator.
Well, AVP's always been a weird, like, separate franchise, I think. Actually,
I hate AVP. Well, the original, the first AVP was a cute little. It was a cute little fan service.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, I can't even stomach. I haven't even watched that whole thing.
I've never seen any of them, honestly. I don't have a problem, because I always have a problem with the concept of the Predators hunting the aliens. It's like, okay, fine, but how does that work? They're not really in the same universe to start with, because the aliens, you only encounter them in the future in those stories. Where the Predator is a modern character. He's like a Bigfoot, basically.
Well, technically, the humans don't run into the xenomorphs.
That's true. Yeah. I just think it's interesting. Like, if the xenomorphs were on Earth, they would have, which is actually my problem with that franchise more than anything. That when I think about the world building,
xenomorphs should never be on Earth.
Like, if they were on Earth, it's a completely different story. You know, they're going to devour the civilization. Everything's just going to be an alien by the time you get to space. Everything's going to be a xenomorph. It's going to look. That's
just like if the Zerg ever hit Earth.
Yeah.
Earth is done.
It's over. That looks tasty. Nice planet you have there. Let's eat it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but I guess my point here was that was not necessarily in the franchises, but Star Wars is a good example of this. The original trilogy, Star Wars especially, had these like models and sets and stuff, you know. And I think there's something to that, but that's not just to be a grognard. I'm not even old enough to be an old grumbler. I'm not that guy. But
I'm not either, but I do it very, very well.
I mean, I could grumble about movies because, like, I grew up with the original trilogy. They were out before I was born. Full disclosure. But like, my parents were showing them to me pretty early on, and those I really like because they're so nostalgic for me still. But also, there's more weight to the series. The performances made more sense to me because. Maybe it's because it also felt like it was kind of more for kids the whole time. And these new movies are like, well, we don't know who these are for almost, because the people who like the original movies have grown up, but we can't let but the franchise has to be able to appeal to everybody. And that's always kind of the problem with every movie that's followed the original trilogy, except maybe Rogue One.
Rogue One is the only Star Wars film in the last 10 to 15 years that deserves to stand with the original trilogy.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. Well, I think the reason why with the original trilogy is that we can ignore the problems of the original trilogy.
Yes.
We can ignore the hammy dialogue. We can ignore some of the crappy visuals. We can ignore some of that because we can just enjoy the story. Lucas just did an amazing job telling a story.
And his editors. Don't forget the editors. His team really kicks some ass. Yeah.
They saved him. But now, and I think the prequel trilogy is starting to get that love as well.
Interesting.
Because you still because this story, it fits like a Lego with this original trilogy. Right?
Okay.
But now we have these awesome visuals to go with it. The dialogue is still relatively similar.
It is.
It's just now
it's less cleaned up, maybe less editing on that, because people were like, oh well, it's just Lucas, let him do it. We're gonna make a killing. Yeah,
right. That's the only issue. But the thing is, and I think that shows like the Clone Wars and Rebels make us love the prequel trilogy more.
Yeah, more than it earned in its own right. Yeah, more than the actual movies earned. Yeah, that's the power of franchise. That's really the power of franchises. Like that, where you've got enough good stuff in a franchise, you can I gotta have this, even though there's a lot of stuff in it I don't like, or is disappointing me a little bit. Yeah,
right. And I think that The Mandalorian just adds to everything pre-it as far as franchise. Not franchise-wise, but in storyline-wise. So it makes you love the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy that much more. And it alienates the sequel trilogy now because you've got all of this positive story happening this much amount of time before Force Awakens, where it's like, we don't need any of that crap. Because folks like me and Shane Wilson, we're getting tired of Skywalkers dominating the storyline. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and those of us that are tired of Skywalkers dominating the storylines, when we get this sequel trilogy, it's much the same, just with different names.
Right.
Where even though, spoiler alert, the season finale of The Mandalorian, there were so many parallels to Rogue One. It was beautiful. But I'm still like, but I wanted something different. I wanted Ezra Bridger to show up. But I kind of had a feeling he wouldn't because, well, this is the time of the guy, right?
Yeah.
So I seriously think that as far as story and film goes, as much as I definitely want to get into Aliens, but if we're still on Star Wars,
just for a little longer,
yeah. I think with Star Wars, what needs to happen is we're gonna need some more anthology films that paint a new picture that don't have Skywalkers touching it. If I'm Jon Favreau, first thing I do is I go to Disney and say, listen, you need to let me and Taika Waititi have this.
Yeah.
You need to let us be in the Star Wars business. So that way you've got the two of us. So if one of us wants to go to Marvel, we can, but the other is taking care of things. And you need to let us have full creative control over who we have under us for this. And then you let them give us some new stories. I want some Gray Jedi centric stuff. I want stuff from Force Use.
Well, it looks like he's frozen, folks. We'll see if he comes up.
Aren't of the Sith. Oh, come on.
No, you froze for a second, but you're back. You're back.
Okay. I want a Gray Jedi, either protagonist or antagonist.
Mm-hmm.
And they're either going after the Sith, going after the Jedi, or both, or the Jedi or the Sith are coming after them. I want a Punisher style
Star Wars user. Yeah.
I want a Punisher Force user. Hell, give me an R-rated Star Wars story.
That'd be fascinating. It'd be way different, obviously, field wise.
Absolutely.
But you could do it. You could do it. There's no reason people can't do it. Except for the money, maybe. Except for the money. I mean, potentially there are forces out there, but yeah.
If you're going to be able to bring Deadpool into the MCU, and they are doing it, R-rated and all, you can do this.
Yeah.
And you can find ways to make it work because you know what? Revenge of the Sith was the most hardcore of the Star Wars film. That movie was an F word and blood away from having an R rating.
Yeah.
And it worked fabulously. So that's my feeling.
But speaking of F words and blood, we're going to let's start the Alien franchise.
Aliens, yes.
Because that franchise is really interesting to me because I noticed the thing. Now I haven't seen Alien 3. I noticed the thing about Alien 3 is that it negates the very beginning of it. Kind of is like you know that ending of that last story doesn't negate it, but it's like that that story last story ended like with a kind of
wasn't the happy ending you thought.
Yeah, exactly. This is not going to be a happy ending, and I know the beginning of Alien 4 is Alien Resurrection as much as that one's maligned. I haven't seen it yet. That one,
Alien Resurrection
is also kind of negates the ending of Alien 3 from what I've seen. Which is interesting, or it's like what you thought happened there is also not what really what worked out.
It doesn't negate it, but what it does is it makes it lose its gravity.
Yeah.
Because don't worry, science will fix everything.
But
that's exactly what it does.
Though it also makes sense to me now, having seen the end of Alien 3, that like, oh, the company is not going to give up, spoiler alert, because they can't get what they wanted. And I also noticed how the movie is such a blunt instrument, Alien 3 in particular. This isn't really a review of the movie, but people should go see this because, I mean, it is R-rated, lots of violence. And go see the Alien and Aliens first, otherwise it won't make a hell of a lot of sense. It's the end of a trilogy, basically.
You know what you need?
Watch that series, yeah.
Just watch the series.
Yeah, start with Alien and go. You won't regret it. You won't regret it.
You won't.
Especially like horror or science fiction. Yeah.
Now, did you watch the theatrical cut or did you watch the extended cut?
I've seen the both versions of the first two movies, but I think I watched the theatrical for the third one. You
should definitely. Now, this is what I need to do also because
I have them all for both. Yeah.
Yeah, same here. I have the same box set you do.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I think I have the Blu-rays. I don't have a Blu-ray. I don't play. I didn't watch it in Blu-ray, but yeah, okay, I didn't have a Blu-ray player convenient. But so I watched it on the DVD.
But we do have the same set.
Yeah, the quadrilogy.
Yeah, I would definitely suggest watching it in both formats and see which one you like.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
But the thing is with Alien 3, I think Alien 3 was just too dark.
It's super dark. Yeah.
It is way too dark because even Aliens had some Aliens visited the whole Terminator aspect. It made it an action movie.
Yes, that's not a horror movie.
Sci-fi. Yeah. Not a horror sci-fi. Alien 3 goes back to being horror sci-fi. Alien 3 could actually be an awesome sequel to Alien.
It is, and it is. That's why I think I kind of respect it for that. But I also think and it has weaknesses. Don't get me wrong. But I was very surprised how much I enjoyed this film because it's very systematic. It's like a blunt instrument. It's like, okay, we're going to do this movie knows what it wants to be. It wants to be the movie where literally none of the characters get what they want. By the end of the movie, everybody loses everything basically that they could.
It basically becomes The Walking Dead.
Yeah, everything that was at stake, and even the bad guys. Even the company man, the alien, they both end up losing what they wanted to get.
Everyone loses.
Everybody loses. It's insane. It's insanely systemic. It's great horror for that reason. Yeah.
Right. Well, because dude, movies that the heroes lose, does that not make art imitate real life?
A bit, yes. And I mean, there's this honesty to it. That's maybe the strongest thing there.
Yeah. Not all nice guys finish last. Not all heroes make it to the end.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, and there's some kills in here too that are exactly like that, where it's like you thought this guy was going to be important. Oh, well, he is, but now he's gone. Okay, got it. Okay,
exactly. And I think that's why the hate for Alien Resurrection is as heavy as it is.
Okay, I'll have to watch that one and find out. I'm really looking forward to it still, even though I know.
I'm trying not to give anything.
Yeah, no spoilers. I've heard a bunch about it because I grew up with. I watched the first two for years, and now I'm finally watching the third one.
Well, here's the thing, though. I will tell you this: Alien Resurrection is kind of a fun movie.
I've heard that
it's fun.
It's more
Ron Perlman and Winona Ryder are amazing, and Michael Wincott is always a victory lap for me. And I can't remember the actor's name off the top of my head, but he was on CSI for a lot of years. I'm gonna look his name up real quick. Let me see. I'll just look up Alien Resurrection. His name is right on the tip of my tongue.
I understand, but I'll vamp for a second. You're doing a pretty good job vamping for yourself, though. But I want to get this eventually to. How does this?
Gary Dordan is his name.
Gary Dordan. Okay.
Yes, he was on CSI.
Okay, great.
That movie it's one of those films where it's very character driven. If the actors aren't playing these characters, it doesn't work for what makes it enjoyable.
Well, another freeze. Oh, there you're back. As soon as I say it's another freeze, you're back. That's no.
What's funny is that your camera went out on.
I turned it off to help the bandwidth.
Okay. Yeah. Gotcha. Should I turn mine off?
Yeah, you should. Folks, we don't record the video anyway, so okay. But it helps to be able to see each other for some of this. But if connection's a problem, we turn it off. So off we go.
All right, cool. But
Yeah, you were saying about the characters in Alien Resurrection.
Yeah. This is a film that, if like the characters are they're your standard 90s archetype characters. But the film is character driven for the fact that if the actors that are playing these characters aren't there, it is not as enjoyable. It doesn't have this that you can be like, well, this works. Because the story is kind of like what you would expect from our evil company has resources. Obviously, they're doing this. Obviously, this is going to happen. And I think that's why the hatred of Alien Resurrection is so there, because of what Alien 3 brings to the table.
Yeah. I was expecting, because again, Alien 3 is such a slap in the face to the ending of Aliens, which I really love. I mean, I love both those. I mean, but I'm like, but then they did it in such a way that I didn't hate the movie. That's what that really surprised me, is how they can say, like, because there's a lot of movies like, what is it, the Bourne Identity I like a lot, and then the Bourne Supremacy I kind of hate, even though it's a decent movie. I hate the way they set it up, because it's also like, well, that first movie doesn't really matter. We're just going to do more movies. Okay, that's frustrating. That's very frustrating. What?
It is, like, especially films that don't need a sequel.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that films that are based on books. Here's the thing: if like Die Hard, the original Die Hard is a classic, but they didn't have a Die Hard 2 book.
No,
it was just, you know what, this works, so we're going to do it, and we're going to do it again.
The same exact thing for the second one. Though the third one was one where they started departing, and that was based on a script that wasn't written to be a Die Hard movie.
Right.
And that's why that movie has a little more life to it, honestly. But then it just augers into the ground immediately after that. I've seen, I think, pretty much all of the Die Hard movies.
I've seen all the Die Hard movies. I wish I hadn't seen all the Die Hard movies.
Me too. Jeez.
I wish I would have stopped at like 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, that's okay. The 3's okay. 3's okay. The 1's great. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing, and it's almost like Lethal Weapon, right?
Yeah.
Now, Lethal Weapon is a little bit different, because Lethal Weapon 2 sort of, it continues the story in a different way, where it feels like, all right, this could happen. Like, how many times are you going to run into a terrorist situation like John McClane does?
Yeah, well, it turns out all the time. But
yeah, apparently if you're John McClane, it's once every few years. But with Lethal Weapon, right? These guys are regular beat cops. This is stuff that, yeah, you're going to fall into it as a cop. Yeah, it's sensationalized because it's a movie, but how many times are cops going to run afoul drug runners?
Yeah.
Often.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So, but this series thing, I mean, you're coming out with a sequel soon too. You said I mean, these series.
The Enforcer has a sequel coming out in the fourth quarter of this year, and Invincible Heart has a sequel coming out in the second quarter of this year.
Right, exactly. And I struggle with writing sequels. Do you have any trouble writing them yourself? Like, I mean, I just, because I have an attention problem when it comes to writing a series. That's basically my problem.
Yes and no. The reason why The Enforcer was easy for me to write as a sequel is because I had a planned series of 5 for that. Problem is that books 1, 2, and 3 are in book 1.
Oh, nice. Oh, that I imagine book 1 must blow things up, blow up real good. That must be a great book.
Yeah.
I mean, combining more than one novel into a book is such a good idea. I'm sorry, but go on. You were saying.
No, it is. And the thing is, but then I had to condense it and make it work so it wasn't super long.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not Robert McCammon. I can't write a 1,000-page book and keep it, I don't think.
I'm not saying, but yeah, that's the thing. But you compress the story, you'd put in 3 books into 1. Yeah.
Right. I compress it down to a healthy between 350 and 500 pages.
Yeah. Nice.
And it works. And then book 2 covers books 4 and 5. But the thing is that book 5 is also continuing on in the third book that I'm
okay. You're adapting basically. Yeah,
I'm basically adapting them into a trilogy. But I was also, because The Enforcer also takes place in a planned larger universe. So what do I mean by that? Look at the first two books of this Path of Redemption series, which is what these books take place in. The Enforcer would be A New Hope. The Hunted would be Empire Strikes Back. So now I'm working on Return of the Jedi. But those stories take place in that original series. Now there are other series that can take on. I can have other anthologies that take place in the same world. So I had this idea before Marvel was doing it, an expanded universe based in this world. And I mean, a lot of authors have done it. Comic books have been doing it for forever. But this was my plan. So that's kind of why it's relatively easy. The problem is remembering continuity, remembering dates. That's the hard part. As I start doing more books, that's going to be the hard part. Right now, I just got to remember little details,
right,
from the previous book. So now, when I'm working on book 3, I'm going to have to go through book 1 and 2 again, to make sure I'm all set.
Absolutely, yeah.
With the John Baker books, Invincible Heart and Unbreakable Mind. The reason why that wasn't so hard is because those books are a spinoff. That series is a spinoff. The Kendra Souders Permutation Archives series. So all I'm doing is writing the spinoffs. So it's a little bit easier. Plus, book 2 of the John Baker series, that takes place at about the same time as Kendra Souders book 4 and book 5.
Okay, so you've got like a guideline of what's going on in the world, and so you can jump off and tie in with that. Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm basically doing things on a different side from what she's doing. And then we worked super closely together toward the climaxes of book 5 and book 2, so that it even ends up being where she took dialogue and writing and everything from my book and proofread it and edited it to fit her narrative style. And I did the same for mine, so that you're getting the same story.
Interesting.
That's told from different perspectives.
That's really sweet. That's a really interesting concept, is to actually use the same text and then just change it up to fit with the characters narrating it, basically.
Yeah, because
for certain parts anyway.
The Permutation Archives is told from first person.
Okay.
My series is told from third person. Pretty much all of my books are third person narrative, because I find first person hard to navigate.
No, that makes sense. I find it. I was kind of instinctively good at it, but I don't like doing it a whole lot. It's kind of weird. I prefer third person when I write. So like most of my books are third person. One of my series has a lot of first person in it. That'd be the
same way. I've got one book that's kind of. I think I'm writing it in second person.
Oh boy.
Where the narrative is first person, the narration is first person, because the lead character is telling a story from his perspective
to somebody else who's who is referred to. Yeah.
Well, they're telling it to another party.
Yeah.
So basically, both characters, like the narrator and the receiver, are both characters in the book.
Yeah, that makes sense. There was a pretty good. I mean, I just love the twist ending of this book, even though I don't really recommend the book. Is Orson Scott Card's Heart's Hope, which is a really, really dark fantasy, very bleak, but the fact that you don't realize who the narrator is until like the last page, and who they're talking to either until the last page, is pretty amazing. A great little twist that makes the ending really cool. But again, the book may not be worth it for most people to pick up because of various reasons. But I read it a long while back, and I had it for a goodly bit before I even read it. So it's one of those, like, it's a book I always think about because it's very interesting narratively, but it's also got a lot of objectionable nonsense in it. Anyway, so I just trigger warning on that one, or content warning on that one, because it's a very tough book to read, and Card is also kind of a tough individual to pay attention to these days. So anyway,
fair enough. Thanks for that. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
I just want to be clear, most of the listeners, because I just because I mentioned a book doesn't mean I recommend it. In fact, I often do not. I mean, a lot of the
is, you got to delve into some of those things so you can have an objection. So you can have an objective opinion on things.
Yes,
right?
Yes. I mean, like, you might want to read it, but be warned, right?
Yeah. And just because a certain individual sucks doesn't mean that their art sucks.
No, I'll stand by a lot of the Card books I've read for a long time. That one is mostly a content warning. Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, because see, here's my thing, and I don't know how you feel about it. I'm all for like I don't like the term cancel culture. I
Hmm.
hate the term cancel culture. Why? Because in a lot of instances, it's not so much canceling, it's someone facing consequences.
Yes.
You
Yes.
can't act and not suffer consequences. We all have we all have things that we need to answer for.
Right.
If you name me one person who says they have absolutely nothing to answer for, I will name you that one person that's a liar.
or at least ignorant of their position. That's for sure.
Exactly. I know that I have things that I need to answer for. We all do.
Yeah.
Now,
Me too.
it's how you respond when you have to answer for it is what determines how you're quote unquote canceled.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. And I don't normally mention things like my opinion of other authors in here. And I it's not an opinion of Card's work because, again, like Orson Scott Card, he's written some classics. Anyway, never mind. So it's one of those.
I guess my point is that, you're saying how, like, this individual is sort of difficult to navigate with, whatever.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you look at some, like, fine, I'll use Ricky Schroeder. And I will not call him Rick Schroeder. I'm calling him Ricky Schroeder because I choose to enjoy his work back when he was Ricky. I don't like Rick. Rick is not someone that I'm going to hang out with, but I was entertained by young Ricky Schroeder.
Okay.
So I'll enjoy Ricky's early work.
Yeah. No, I get that. That makes so much sense. Yeah.
I have no matter of fact, just like, or even Kirk Cameron. Do I like Kirk Cameron now? Absolutely not. No. Do I appreciate some of the work he's done? I loved Growing Pains as a kid. Am I going to go outside of my way to watch Growing Pains now? No, because it's not really my cup of tea now, but I appreciated it then.
Yeah. No, that makes so much sense. And we've wandered a little bit, but it's fine. And actually, I'm about out of time. And thanks. Sorry, what?
I can't make that happen. I'm sorry.
No, it's been great. It's been great. This is a little different from what I expected, but it's better than I expected, to be honest. So, Bryan Tann, thanks for being on the show. I know you did this last minute, so this is super kudos, dude. This really rocked.
I'm totally happy. I'm totally happy to do it. I'm totally happy to have conversations about what I love, storytelling and film. I love storytelling, whether it's film, whether it's books, whether it's TV. I love all of it. And I'm always happy to talk it and have discussion on it.
All right. Yeah. Likewise. Well, maybe not always for me. I get tired about 9:00. Anyway. But sometimes that won't stop me. Referring to that the Going D Now podcast I did on New Year's.
Man.
Yikes.
You know what though? I seriously had to bow out of that one. I was so exhausted. It's like, all right, man. I'm done. I can't.
I picked up the slack. I was there until like 2 a.m. in my local time. Yeah.
You're the man, because I was like, all right, man. We rang in the new year together. This is awesome. I'm ready to go to sleep.
I was up with Joe and Katie until they were able to sign off. Pretty much. I mean, I signed off a little before them, but yeah, it's pretty close.
I will never try to hang with Joe and Katie when it comes to staying awakeness, because not only do they have the unfair ability of being on the West Coast, but they just go and go and go, and I'm like, yeah, I just can't do that.
Yeah, well, maybe. Yeah, anyway, I'll leave that out. We don't have time to open another can of worms, but it's been great having you on the show, Bryan. Remind people where they can find your work, and yeah, thanks again.
Not a problem. You guys can find my books, The Enforcer, available now in print and ebook format, and Invincible Heart, again, available in print and ebook format. Just go to randomevolvemedia.com. and go to the store. It's right there. If you want to hear my voice on a regular basis, you can go to plotaholics.com or follow us on all social media at Plotaholics. A film review with myself and Shane Wilson, another author and amazing musician, as my co-host, and we talk film. Our latest episode, we spoke about the year 2000 film Loser, starring Jason Biggs and Mina Savari. One of my favorite films of all time. This coming week, we're going to be talking about Pretty in Pink with a special guest and going from there. So yeah, you can check us out wherever you find podcasts.
Badass. And as for this podcast, you can find us at mentalcellarpublications.com. You can find my books on amazon.com, pretty much exclusively in ebook, but you can also find the print versions of a lot of those wherever ebooks, wherever print-on-demand books are distributed. Thanks for listening, folks. Stay safe, and I hope you enjoyed this show.
That tears it.